Blog Talk Radio.
And looking at beautiful stories of his hilm, tolerance, and his truthfulness, and his trustworthiness, and these beautiful stories, it's beyond this. He is the tissues of our lives. He is our intercessor on the day of judgment. He is our door. Through him we can access Al-Jannah, and without him we can never access Al-Jannah. This is why in the past 70, 80 years since the establishment of the Saudi royal family and the Saudi dynasty in Saudi Arabia, so-called Saudi Arabia, I have never seen.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to the Deen Over Deen station. And tonight we have something special. We're going to be continuing the class in Maliki Fiqh. We started some months ago. It is the text, Rissala of Zayd, al-Qayrawaanee. But for those who may have missed that, it's fine. You can go to our archives and look up Maliki Fiqh class, or Rissala of Zayd, al-Qayrawaanee, and you can find the first couple of chapters that was covered by the teacher, and that was the section dealing with the creed, and some of the sections dealing with purification. However, tonight I believe we're going to be starting with the prayer. So really much has not been missed by anyone who may have missed it. And as you know, the way the class works, the teacher who's on, he'll be going through the text. And what we suggest is that you have a copy of the text with you. Whether you want to use the all Arabic or a translation or a combination of both. And at a certain point, you'll take questions. Anytime you have a question, you can push the number 1. We will go to you, and we'll deal with your question in a timely manner to the best of our abilities. May Allah Ta'ala bless you all. Assalamu alaikum. Ustadh Ahmed, are you on?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Wa alaikum salam. Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, all right. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم أجمعين. اللهم تعلمنا علم ينفع بي. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. We're going to be continuing now the text of the Rissala of Ibn Abi Zayd al-Qayrawaanee. I'm gonna we're just starting with the Bible, like Sidi Hanif said. So if anyone missed, it's been a while since we have been reviewing the text, but I've been very busy. But alhamdulillah, I think I got it worked out now to where we should be able to continue with this every Sunday. We'll be starting with the Bab Sifat al-Amr fi Salat al-Mufrad wa ma yatasal biha min nawafil wa sunnah. It is the chapter on how to perform the Fard prayers and the Sunnah and the nawafil prayers and everything which is connected with them. So we'll go for maybe, 40 minutes or so, maybe 30, 40 minutes, and then we'll open up for questions concerning the text, and we'll see how everything works out. So without further ado, the Imam says, Al-Ihramu fi salah inna tuqul Allahu Akbar wa la yajzi ghayra hadha kalamihi wa tarfa'u yadayka hadr munkibik أو دون ذلك ثم تقرأ فإن كنت في صبح قرأت جهرا القرآن لا تستفتى بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم في القرآن ولا في السورة التي بعدها فإذا قلت ولا الضالين فقل آمين إن كنت وحدك أو خلف إمامي وتخفيها ولا يقولها في إمام فيها جهرا فيها ويكون لها فيما أصل فيه. So the translation of what the Imam just said, he said, when you're going into the state of prayer as the ihram, he said you start with Allahu Akbar, right? And he says that nothing besides this speech is accepted, right? So basically, you enter into the salah with the saying of Allahu Akbar. Right? So then the Imam says, it is to say Allahu Akbar with an extension of the amount of the lam, Allah. If he fails to do it, then his ihram is not valid. Right? So Allah, right? He says the one who mentions it, only mentions it. No other expression is acceptable. If he speaks good Arabic. If he does not speak good Arabic, then Abdul Wahhab says he enters into the prayer by the intention, except for the non-Arab. Abu Faraj says he enters into his own language, but this is weak, even if the prayer is not invalidated by analogy, with the dislike of the supplication in non-Arabic, while the one who could do it in Arabic. But what is relied upon is the first statement. The author calls this sentence a word, right? So, if a person doesn't know Arabic, then they can, say the meaning, whatever, in their own language or by intention. But if a person knows Arabic, or if they know that amount, then that is what is required for to enter into ihram, or the state of where everything is impermissible, because the person is now in prayer. And then the Imam says, ثم تقرأ إن كنت فإن كنت في صبحي قرأت جهرا. He says, so then a person begins to read or begins to recite. He says if a person was in the morning prayer, then they read this out loud, starting with the mother of the book. The mother of the book, of course, is the Surah Fatiha. And he says, وَلَا تَسْتَفْتَ بِسْمِ اللَّهِ الرَّحْمَنِ الرَّحِيمِ فِي الْقُرْآنِ وَلَا فِي سُورَةٍ الَّتِي بَعْدَهَا. He says, so you don't open up with the opening of Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. He says, you don't do this before the prayer or before or after. And so this is a matter of dispute or ikhtilaf or difference among the scholars of the various madhahib. But the text which we're dealing with, of course, is the Rissala of Ibn Abi Zayd. So we're just going to focus on the opinions of Imam Malik and the Amal of Medina and the people of Medina in regards to this, acknowledging that there is disagreement. Maybe afterwards we can maybe go into those. But just for the sake of giving the proof, for the Maliki position, just so people don't think that, that this stuff just came out of the air. There's a reason why Imam Malik said that you don't say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim before you start reading. And to illustrate further, I'll go to some of the various explanations given by some of the other Maliki scholars in regards to this particular mas'ala. Right. Hold on. Okay, so Imam Qurtubi, he says, Bismillah, he said in regards to Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, he says it is not said because it is not part of the Quran. Right? And again, the other schools, for example, the Shafi'iyya and the Hanafiyya and the Hanabila, well, they'll disagree. But Malik says it's not part of the Quran, so therefore you don't read it. And Musalah, you only recite what's part of the Quran. Right? He says, لَيْسَ بِآيَاتٍ مِنْ فَاتِهَا وَلَا غَيْرَهَا وَهُوَ قَوْلُ الْمَالِكِ. So Imam Malik said that Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim is not part of the Quran, so therefore he doesn't read it. And he says, وَصَحِيحٌ مِنْ هَذِهِ أَقْوَالُ قَوْلُ الْمَالِكِ لِأَنَّ الْقُرْآنَ لَا يُثَبَّتُ بِأَخْبَارِ الْأَحَدِ وإنما طريق تواتر قطعي الذي لا يختلف فيه. قال ابن العربي ويكفيك إنها ليس من القرآن اختلاف الناس فيها والقرآن لا يختلف فيه والأخبار الصحيح التي لا مطعن فيها دالة على اسم الله. بسم الله ليس بآيات الفاتحة ولا غيرها إلا في نمل ووحدها. رواه مسلم عن أبي هريرة قال سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول قال الله عز وجل قسمت صلاة بيني وبين عبدي نصفين ولعبدي ما سأل فإذا قال عبد الحمد لله رب العالمين قال الله تعالى حمدني عبدي. وإذا قال عبد الرحمن الرحيم قال الله تعالى أثنى على عبدي. وإذا قال عبد مالك يوم الدين قال مجدان عبدي. وقال مرة فوضى إلى عبدي. فإذا قال إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين قال هذا بيني وبين عبدي ولعبدي ما سأل. فإذا قال اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين قال هذا عبد ولعبدي ما سأل. فقال سبحان الله قسمت الصلاة يريد فاتحة. Right? And so amongst the evidence he says that Imam Malik says that the Basmalah is not part of the Quran because it was not conveyed unanimously, meaning by consensus by everyone. He said, and we don't accept what's not conveyed unanimous in regards to the Quran. He said that the proof must be conveyed by everyone, and it must be definitive. There's no difference in his ruling. So Ibn Arabi, he says, and it is enough that it is not from the Quran, and people have disputed about it. Right. So the very fact that people have disputed about it proves it is not from the Quran. So then he says, the Bismillah is not part of the Quran except for Surah Naml, some verses from Surah Naml. And then he gives the further proof by the hadith, which is in Sahih Muslim, narrated by Abu Hurairah, who says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I have divided the prayer between me and between my servant. When my servant says, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, Allah says, my servant has praised me. And then when my servant says, Ar-Rahman Rahim, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, my servant has praised me, or has magnified me. And then when the servant says, Maliki Yawmiddin, Allah says, my servant has glorified me. And when the servant says, Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in, Allah says, this is between me and this is my servant. And so he keeps, so at each verse, Allah is responding here to the person when they're praying. And so this is proof that the Basmalah is not part of the Fatiha, because if it was, Allah would have started off saying, my servant has said Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, but he didn't. He said, when my servant says Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, then Allah responds. So according to Malik and the Madhab of the Amal of Medina, this is why the Basmalah is not part of the Quran, nor is it recited in the beginning of the Salah. And so also you'll see that, so the Fatiha is 7 verses, so Basmalah is not one of them. So what al-Daleen, he says, is a verse. What al-Daleen, he said this right here is a verse. So he says, Anamta alayhim ayat. He said, Anamta alayhim is an ayat, ثم آيات 7 إلى آخرها. فثبت هذا القسمة التي قسمها الله تعالى بقوله عليه السلام لأبي كيف تقرأ إذا أفتحت الصلاة؟ قال فقرأت الحمد لله رب العالمين حتى آتت على آخرها النسب لا ليس بآيات منها. وكذلك عد أهل المدينة وأهل الشام وأهل البصرة وأكثر القرآن أدوى وأنمت عليهم آية. وكذلك وقتادة عن أبي نصر عن أبي هريرة قال آيات سادسة أنمت عليهم. وأما أهل الكوفة من القرى وفقها عدوا وفيها بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولم يعدوا أنمت عليهم. So he says, so Imam Malik says, أنمت عليهم is a verse. He says, so أنمت عليهم is a verse, and وَلَضَالِينَ is a verse. He said, and so this is evident from the hadith. And he says, he says, and this is the opinion of the people of Medina, and the people of Sham, or Syria, and the people of Basra. He said, and most of the reciters of the Quran, they count Anamta alayhim as an ayah. He said, and this is also confirmed by the narration of Qatada on Abu Nadr, on Abu Hurairah, who said that the sixth ayah, or the sixth ayah in the Fatiha is Anamta alayhim. He said, but the scholars of Kufa, they disagree with this, and they count Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim as an ayah, and they don't count Anamta alayhim as an ayah. Right? So Imam Malik, we'll find as we continue to go through the text, that when it comes to the salat and things like this, he's very particular, and he uses more the specific verses of the Quran and the controlling amal of Medina and precedence over the singular reports. It's not an instance where he didn't know the other reports, saying that the read Bismillah and everything. And as a matter of fact, he was asked about it, and it is recorded in the Madawwana, actually, that he said that that it's okay to read the Basmala. He said, but not in regards to the Fard Salat. Right? So not in regards to Fajr, Dhuhr, also Maghrib or Isha. He said, but like if a person is doing one of the Nawafil prayer, he said then he doesn't. There's nothing wrong with it. But in regards to the Fard Salat, then no, it's not, because it's not from the Amal of Medina, and again, it's not from the it's not from the Quran itself. And also, he records the riwayah of the Sahabi Abdullah bin Mughaffal, and this is in his Muwatta, where he said, I prayed behind Malik. I prayed behind Abu Bakr, and I prayed behind Umar, and I prayed behind Uthman, and none of them recited Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. He also records riwayah Muslim Aidan an Anas bin Malik قال صليت خلف النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وأبي بكر وعمر فكانوا يسبحون بحمد الله رب العالمين ولا يذكرون بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولا في أول قرأ ولا في آخرها. Right? So even the great Sahabi Anas bin Malik, who of course was the servant of the Prophet ﷺ for 10 years. He was always with the Prophet ﷺ. He used to pour his water for him when he made wudu. He used to live in his house with him. He used to sleep next to him. There's the famous narration where the Prophet ﷺ was standing in Tahajjud prayer, and Anas came beside him and stood on the left of the Prophet. The Prophet grabbed him by his braid, and he put him on his right. So he knew the Prophet very well. He knew the Prophet very well. He's also the Sahabi who narrated the famous narration. He said, I was with the Prophet for 10 years. And he said he never said to me, he never disproved of me, or he never rebuked me, or he never spoke a bad word to me. He said that, this is Anas bin Malik, he said that I prayed with the Prophet, he said I prayed behind the Prophet, and behind Abu Bakr, and behind Umar. He said, and they would read, or when they would read, they would start with Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, and they did not mention Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Right. So this is and also ثم مذهبنا يترجى في ذلك وجه العظيم وهو معقول وذلك أن مسجد النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بالمدينة انقطعت عليه الأصول ومر عليه الأزمة ودهور من دون رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إلى زمن المالك ولم يقرأ أحد فيه قط. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اتبع السنة وهذا يدعى أحاديثكم. Right. And so also he says, so this is only logical. This is only logical that in the measure of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from the beginning of time, or there was never a break in time, meaning in prayer, from the time of the Prophet sallallahu to the time of Malik, to the time of Imam Malik, and no one, he said, no one had ever read the Bismillah in the Salat. He said, so we follow that Sunnah. And this is a refutation of these hadith which you have. SubhanAllah. Okay, so he's saying that the other hadith, I mean, at best, they can be interpreted as being in regards to the Nawafil Salat and not the Fardhu Salat. So with that, we'll continue. He says, وفي قوله يا في جهر الاختلاف ثم تقرأ الصورة من طوال مفصلة وإن كانت أطول من ذلك فأحسنوا بقدره تغليظ وتجهر بقراءتها. فإذا تمت صورة كبرت في أنحائك للركوع فتمكن يديك من ركبتك فتسوي ظهر مستويا ولا ترفع رأسك ولا يباطئ وتجافي بدبق عن جنابك ولا تعتقد خشوع بذلك بركوعك وسجودك ولا تدعو في ركوعك وقل إن شئت سبحان رب العظيم وبحمده وليس في ذلك توقي قول ولا حد في اللبس ثم ترفع رأس وأنت قائل سمع الله لمن حمده ثم تقول اللهم ربنا ولك الحمد إن كنت وحدك ولا يقول لها إمام ولا يقول مأموم سمع الله لمن حمده ويقول اللهم ربنا ولك الحمد وتستوي قائما مطمئنا متصلا. So he says after that, one second, okay. So he said when you say the takbir al-ihram, he said you read a surah after it from amongst the mufassir. He says, and if you recite like in the first part a longer one, he said then this is good. He said, one second, gotta get my book straight. Okay. He says, that there's no, after that then you recite another surah, and this is a sunnah. It must be something which is more than the Fatiha, even if it is one ayah. The evidence is that the sunnah is being more than the Fatiha. Right. So basically, after we recite the Fatiha, the Quran, then you recite another one. So then he says, if you're by yourself or behind an imam, you say Ameen, the word Darling, but you do not say Ameen aloud. And the imam does not say Ameen if he is reciting aloud, but if he does the recitation in silent. This is, however, difference of opinion, whether the imam should say Ameen when the recitation is allowed. Okay, this is another area of disagreement in that when the mashhur or the dominant opinion within the school is that when it comes to the Ameen, that the Ameen is there silent. And this is based on actually not a different text than the text which everyone else use when they, when everyone says Ameen out loud. But if you look at the wording of the actual hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, when I say well Daaleen, say, or when the Imam says well Daaleen, say Ameen. He said because whoever says Ameen, his Ameen coincides with the other angels, then that person's sins will be forgiven. So the reason here is that the reason why the Prophet ﷺ said, when I say well Daaleen, say Ameen, is because he wasn't saying Ameen aloud. If he was saying Ameen aloud, he would have said, when I say Ameen, say Ameen. But he didn't. Right? So it's evident from the text that he was saying Ameen silent. Right? So therefore, again, now with the other schools, with the with the Shafi'i and the Hanabila, they say Ameen out loud, based on the same narration. I said, but our understanding is that the reason why the Prophet ﷺ said, when I say what Allah, he say Ameen, is because he wasn't saying, or else it wouldn't make no sense. He would have said, when I say Ameen, say Ameen. So evidently they didn't hear him saying it because he was saying it silent. And so some of the scholars have said in regards to the Ameen, Mujahid says, he said Ameen ism min ismi Allah azza wa jal. He said the Ameen is a name for the names of Allah. And he said that there's four, it is also said that Ameen, the letters Alif, Mim, Ya, Nun, are, there's an angel in place of every letter. He says, and so the meaning is Ya Rab, right, or meaning like, oh Lord, like make this true for us, meaning the Fatiha. So then the Imam, he goes on. One second. Make sure I didn't forget anything. So then the Imam, he continues, and he says, so after Ameen, you raise your hands for takbir, right? And he says at the same time you raise your hands, you raise it to the level with the shoulders or lower. Right, so when you say the takbir, it is recommended to raise your hands. He said the backs are towards the sky and palms to the earth, level with the shoulders, or a little lower, or the top of the chest. This is the sunnah for the man. As for the woman, is a little less than that. Qarafi has said there's consensus on that. There's a disagreement about raising of the hands. Again, this is in regards to, well, actually this is out of order. Hold on. Because actually the raising of the hands is only for the beginning. This is not for the when you bow. Actually, because okay, yeah, I read out of order. So you don't. So after the second reading of the second surah, then the person goes into ruku. But they don't raise their hands. But prior to that, he's talking about the super prayer. But he's talking about the super prayer. He says that the surah, which recites in the subh or the morning prayer, should be one of the long mufassal. And these are like the surahs that start with, I believe, Surah Hujurat. Now, Surah Hujurat, right? And there are other positions like from Ashura, Al-Jathiyah, or from Al-Fath, or from Najm, and this extends to Abasa. These are called the Mufassila. The medium ones are the ones from Abasa to Duha, right? Or from Duha to the end of the Quran. These are called the Mufassal because there are a great number of divisions in them by the Basmala. So the Basmala is not, again, it's not a part of the Quran, but is used as a heading basically to divide the surahs. Right? He said it's good if the surah which he recites in the first rakat in the Fajr prayer or the Subh prayer is longer than one of the long mufassal, that you are near a surah, which is one of the long mufassal, not that you recite Baqarah or recite. The length is in respect to the imam or a limited number of people who are content with that, someone on his own who is strong enough for that. Otherwise, it is best not to make it that long. Hasan or good here means recommended. In its words, they apply that the sunnah is only obtained by reciting one of the long mufassal, and the recommendation is to do more. This is not like that. The sunnah is obtained even by reciting an ayah. Right? He said, well, make it light, or make it light is when it's mixed, or until the light. Meaning, again, this is in regards to the Fajr. He says this is when darkness is mixed with light, and vice versa before it begins to brighten. And so, in regards to the prayer, he said it is prayed out loud. Of course, he said when you say the takbir, as long as you go down, the three things. This is in regards to the ruku now. Three things are taken from his words about the ruku. One is the takbir, which is sunnah. It is all of it except the takbir of ihram and one sunnah. This is what Ashab says, and most of the scholars, they take that position. Some say that every takbir is a separate sunnah in itself. And this is the opinion of Ibn Qasim. Ibn Qasim, of course, was one of Imam Malik's. He was one of the Egyptians. He had two famous Egyptian students. One was Qasim, one was Ibn Qasim, one was Ibn Abdul Wahhab. Ibn Qasim was the narrator of the Madawwana of Ibn Sahnun. So usually the Egyptian students of Malik, they have a precedence whenever there's a difference like between them and the Iraqis, in the Spanish Malikis, like Yahya bin Yahya, Ibn Qasim and Ibn Abdul Wahhab. Their opinion is taken more because they spent over 30 years with them, and so they had obviously a better knowledge of the Imam's opinion. Right, so Qasim says every takbir itself is a separate sunnah. Right, and he says the evidence for it being predominant is that they stipulate the prostration of forgiveness for omitting two of them. So if you omit two things, which is sunnah, of course, then you do the sajda as-sahw. If we would have started with the akhdari, it's a better chapter in there on the prostration of forgiveness, which the other books in Maliki Fiqh don't have. But nonetheless, the evidence that the takbir al-ihram, every takbir, subsequent to the takbir al-ihram is a sunnah, is that if you omit two of them, meaning if you don't do two of them, then you have to make a prostration of forgiveness. And this is with everything which is a sunnah in the prayer. If two sunnahs are omitted from the prayer, then you have to make a prostration of forgiveness, which is done before. It's called a qabli. It's called a qabli, not a body. We'll get to that later on, though. Right? And he said, if all of them had been the sunnah, then they would have not been imposed, and there's no prostration for omitting a part. Right? The upshot of that is that if there's one takbir is omitted, except for the takbir of the Eid by forgetfulness, he does not prostrate. If he prostrates for it before the taslim deliberate or out of ignorance, then his prayer is invalid. So basically if you add something to the prayer, like another prostration or something outside of what's recommended, then this would actually render the prayer invalid. If one omits more than one, even all of them, then he prostrates. If he omits the prostration and a long time passes, then there's a difference according to the two prostrations. According to the statement that all is one sunnah, then the prayer is invalid by omitting three or more. But again, the dominant opinion is that two, if you omit two, because every single one is a sunnah in itself. So he says the ruku position, he said you put your hands on your knees, straighten your back, so it's parallel to the ground. Again, there's no mention of the raising the hands here, because according to the dominant position in the school, there's no raising the hands between each part of the prayer, right? And so some people may say, well, how is this so? Because in the Muwatta of Imam Malik, there's the narration of Abdullah ibn Umar, who says the Prophet ﷺ used to raise his hands in prayer. You know, you Malikis, you're not even following Imam Malik. You're following you're blind following, what they say. Again, this is incorrect and based on a fundamental just misunderstanding of the school and the reading of the text. The operative word, the important word in the particular hadith which Abdullah ibn Umar narrates from Nafi was kana, or was. And so, according to the madhab, the dominant position of the madhab of Imam Malik, kana here is in reference to Maldi, it's in reference to the past. So, if rendered into English, it would be the Prophet used to raise his hands and at the takbir and then go into ruku, right? But he stopped. And the Maliki school is very particular about praying the prayer of the Prophet, so according to how he last prayed it. So the understanding of this hadith is that during the first years of revelation and everything, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to raise his hands, at the break of every prayer. At the break of every section, for example, going into ruku, standing back up from ruku, and things like this. But he stopped for whatever reason, we don't know. Allahu Akbar. So the dominant position in the Maliki school is that the word kana here is operative, and so the Prophet used to, in the first years of revelation, raise his hand. We know the hadith. He said, raising the hand is adornment of the prayer and everything. It's not like Imam Malik didn't know the hadith. He knew the hadith. He just said that. Actually, the narration of Abdullah ibn Umar, which Nafi, narrates from Abdullah ibn Umar, was that was how the Prophet used to do it at first, but then he stopped. Right? So you don't raise the hands when going into the wudu. Going into the ruku. So it says putting the hands on the knees is recommended. If they are both sound, he is not prevented from putting them by some impediment. An impediment would be an amputation or shortening. He does not bind any further from having his back straight. Having a back straight is not obligatory and is recommended. Since the obligation is general, bowing is obligatory. Its fullest form is to place the hands on the knees. It is recommended for him to spread his fingers. And this is based on what Hakim and al-Bayhaqi transmitted. From that, when he bowed, he spread his fingers, and then he prostrated and kept them together. It is recommended that the back be straight. The author mentioned both placing the hands on the knees and keeping the back straight, since one of them does not necessitate the other. Keeping the back straight does not necessitate placing the hands on the knees. Placing the hands on the knees does not necessitate keeping the back straight, as both of them are recommended, or simply one of them alone recommended. He says, you do not lift your head, nor do you let it drop. You make sure that the insides of your arms are away from your sides. He said this is recommended. Omitting any of this does not invalidate the prayer. So this is not like one of the sunnahs of the prayer, which would invalidate it. It is recommended that the insides of the arms be far from the sides. This is explained as being not very far, but like a medium amount away. This does not apply to both men and women. Women should keep their arms to their sides. He does not mention the straightness of the knees. He is not excessive in bowing by making them straight. He is also silent. I'm talking Ibn Abi Zayd. He is also silent about the straightness of the feet, which they are not right together. This is disliked. It is recommended they should be avoided. Alright. He says, so in the ruku, in the sujood, you should be aware of your state, that you are in complete submission. Your heart must be humble. This is recommended as well with the Fuqaha, Ibn Rushd. They said that this is one of the obligations although the prayer is not invalidated if it's omitted. It is an obligatory. It is obligatory in part of it. It must exit in the ihram. He says, and then you say by yourself, Allahumma Rabbana wa lakal hamd. Alright? So when you raise up, but when you're in the position, I'm sorry, you can say Subhana Rabbil Azim wa bihamdihi. Right? So Subhana, of course, there's different variations. Some hadiths just say Subhana Rabbil Azim, Subhana Rabbil Azim. But the particular one mentioned here is Subhana Rabbil Azim wa bihamdihi. Right? He says, Rabbana wa lakal hamd. So this is when the person, so then when the Imam, he raises up, he says, Sami Allahu liman hamida. You say this if you're alone or if you're praying behind the Imam. His saying of it is sufficient. When he says, Sami Allahu liman hamida, Allah is heard the one who's praised him. Then you say, or you can say to yourself, Allahumma Rabbana wa lakal hamd. Some say, Allahumma Rabbana wa lakal hamd, wa hamdan kathiran tayyiba, baraka fi. Any of these dua which are recorded in the various ahadith are acceptable to say at this point. He says, ثم تحوي ساجدا ولا تجلس ولا تجلس ثم تسجد وتكبر في انحاطك للسجود فتمكن جبهتك وأنفق من أرض وتبشر بكفيك الأرض باسطا يديك مستوي إلى قبلة تجعلهما حظ أذنك وأذن ذلك وكل ذلك واسع غير أنك ولا تفتراش ذراعك في الأرض ولا تضم عضدك إلى جنابك ولكن تجنح بها تنجيحا واسطا وتكون رجالك في سجودك قائمتين وبطون إبلاههما إلى الأرض وتقولون إن شئت في سجودك سبحانك ربي ظلمت نفسي وعملت سواء فاغفر لي وغير ذلك إن شئت تدور في سجودي إن شئت وليس لي طلوع ذلك وقد وكل إن تطمئن مفاصلك متمكنة ثم ترفع رأسك بتكبير فتجلس فتثنى رجلك يسرى في جلوسك بين سجدين وتنسب يميني وبطن أصابعهم إلى الأرض وترفع يديك على ركباتك ثم تسجد ثانيا كما فعلت الأولى ثم تقوم من الأرض كما أنت معتمد على يديك ولا ترجع جالسا لتكوين من جلوس ولكن كما ذكر لك وتكبيرك حال قيامك ثم تقرأ كما قرأت في أولى أو دون ذلك وتفعل مثل ذلك سوى غير إنك تقنأت بعد الركوع وإن شئت فنسب قبل الركوع بعد تم القرآن. So he says, and then you straighten back up. Everything was touched, and then you lift up from ruku, stand straight and still. The stillness is obligatory, so there must be a little, just a little stillness here, not to be rushed, and then, hurry up and just flop down. No, he said that there should be stillness here. He said, and then you go down into sujood. He said you go down to the sujood or the prostration position, going into prostration from a standing position, as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did. There's no disagreement that the prostration, it is obligatory. It's one of the arkan. Actually, you do not prostrate from a sitting position, as some of the people now should say. It is useful to be precise. Imam Shafi, in regards to this, he said that a very light sitting before prostration is part of the sunnah. the argument of some of the people of knowledge that he did that, and the argument of one who denies that he sat before prostration is related from Aisha that he did that at the end of his life because the movement of his noble hands had became heavy. It was not to change the sunnah. It was due to an excuse, and it is negated when the excuse does not exist. Right? If this sitting occurs for forgetfulness, it is not long, there is no harm. If it is long, then he prostrates on account of it. Then, so basically, there is you can go into prostration, when a person is sitting, but this is only like if a person has a need for it. Like some of the prophets or somebody, he did this mainly when he was sick. He says when you go down into sujood, you say Allahu Akbar, face on the ground. You put your forehead and your nose on the ground. He said it is the sunnah to fulfill the pillar with the takbir. It is recommended to place the hands before the knees when you go into prostration, and to have the hands leave the earth after the knees and raising the command by his command to do that. This is what the people of Medina did. As for what the people of the Sunnah relate, stating that when he prostrated, he put his knees down before his hands. When he came, he lifted his hands before his knees. What Dr. Kutani said. Shadika said this, and Shadika, some said that this was abrogated. So again, so acknowledging that some of the other madhabs, when they go down into sujood, they say you put the knees down first and the hands. But according to the people of Medina, you put the hands down first. Again, that the narration which hints at putting the knees down first, this was one of the things which was abandoned and abrogated. So according to the people of Medina, the hands go first when you go into sajda. He said the forehead. So you place the forehead on the ground. This is between the temples to the forelock. As much as possible is placed on the ground. This is recommended. That's fulfilling the obligation, and that it is enough to place the least amount on the forehead. When he puts his forehead on the earth, he should not press it hard on the earth so that it leaves a mark. This is disliked. He said this is the action of the people who are ignorant and have no knowledge. He said prostration on both the forehead and the nose is obligatory. All right. There are different opinions in regards to this, but the mashhur is that it is confined to the nose. It is not enough, and he must repeat it. So the nose must touch the ground also, right? The nose and the forehead. This is it says in the Madonna that if a person did not prostrate on his nose, because the prostration on the nose naturally demands prostration on the brow. Right? So if a person, to know if you're doing it right, the nose has to be touching, because you can't prostrate on the nose without the forehead touching. Right? Also, with the position of the hands, he said with your palms, they must be flat on the ground, the fingers facing the Qibla on a level with your ears or further back. Right? Though being no fixed position for the hands. It is recommended that he put the palms on the ground without any barrier. It is recommended for the face and the hands to be directly touching the ground, because it is humility, and it's what is disliked to prostrate on that which is luxurious and comfortable, like wool or cotton. Right. So again, according to the Malikiya, it's recommended in two places. When you prostrate, it should be on earth. Of course, one could prostrate on carpet and things like that, but the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he prostrated on the ground. His message at the time was dirt. There's the famous narration where he, one of the eves, it was raining, and he raised up from prostration, and it was mud, dripping from his forehead. And so, and you'll notice too, if you go to some of the traditional Maliki countries, like in northern Africa and West Africa and everything, even the mats which they use in the masjid, they're made of reed to be prostrated on a natural surface. This what's recommended, but there's no problem in no prostrating. Other than that, Imam Ibn Abi Zayd, he was very, they used to call him Little Malik. He was very adamant about keeping everything as fundamental and as pure as possible. So that's why he himself, he mentioned that it's disliked to pray on things which are comfortable, because this wasn't this wasn't the sunnah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so the fingers again are spread out. The fingers are spread on the earth. This is stressed and is recommended. The fingers should be facing the Qibla or the direction of the Kaaba. Imam Khalafi says that the reason for this is that they prostrate, the fingers prostrate, so they also should face the Qibla also. If that prostration itself is done on the hands, like the knees and the toes and the feet, so everything should be in the direction of the Qibla. He said this is the sunnah, that they should be on. He said, although you must make sure your arms are not touching the ground, your arms should not be close against your sides, but they should be out a little. Right? It's a famous hadith in Bukhari, where the Prophet said, the Sahaba said they could see the whiteness of his armpits. That's how his arms were spread when he was in prostration. And also the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he forbade a man to rest on his forearms like that of a wild animal. Right? So you don't prostrate with your elbows and stuff, on the ground like a dog. No, the arms should be out. And if someone behind you should be able to see the like your armpits. All right. At this point, I'll just finish. It says so during the sujood, your feet should be upright with your toes, ground, everything facing the Qibla. When you're in sajda, it is you can say many du'a. This is the time when the du'as are accepted. Some of the most famous of the sunnah is Subhanaka Rabbi Zalamtu Nafsi wa Amintu Bisu Faghfirli. Glory be to you, O Lord. I have wronged myself and acted badly, so forgive me. Some also say Rabbana Astaghfirlini, Rabbana Aghfirlini 3 times. You have a choice in what you say at this point. Imam Malik was not real particular about the particular du'as, which is said here, as long as it's, from the confirmed sunnahs, or even, personal prayers at this time, as the Prophet also said in an authentic narration, the closer the servant is to Allah is when they're in sajda, so they should make du'a at this time. So then a person, Allahu Akbar, and they rest back on the, they sit back to where they're on their knees. And at this point, you should be sitting in what's called the tawarik position, not the iftirash, the tawarik position. Well, this is after the second takbir. And in the Maliki school, the tawarik position is the sunnah. The tawarik position is when a person sits on the left. They sit on the buttocks, but with the left foot is the left leg is like protruding out a little, and the toes are facing the Qibla. But the right leg is like they're sitting back on it, like the hind leg. This is called the tawarik. The other one is the iftirash, where a person just basically sits on the left buttock, where the left leg is not protruding from the other side of the foot. Right? So this should be the position where one sits. This is the sunnah. And then one raises again at the takbir, and they repeat the first rakat as they did. The second rakat as they did the first. At this point, inshallah, I want to pause for a few minutes and ask if anyone have any questions. Wow.
Alhamdulillah. If anyone has any questions, push number 1, and we'll take your questions. If not, inshallah, we can continue on. All right, we have a question.
Alaikum.
Salam.
Hello? Okay, I have a couple of questions. I'm following in the English, and when you're in Ruku, and it says that there's no fixed number of times to say what you say there. Is it just like assume that you do what's best and just do 2 or 3, or 3 if you're able? While you're in Ruku to say Subhana Rabbiyal Azim.
You're talking about when you're in Ruku, Subhana Rabbiyal Azim wa bihamdihi?
Right.
Huh?
Right.
Hello?
Right. When you're in
okay.
Ruku,
yeah. There's no fixed number, but the most commonly given repetition is 3, or any number of 5. He doesn't say it in this particular text, but in the other texts, like I think like in the Muqtasa and everything, 3 is recommended, or 3, 5, or any odd number, depending on how long you're in that position. But there's no fixed number though. But it should be.
Is that like a difference of opinion thing, or is this like the Maliki, the best thing in Maliki, or is that just across the board? I remember someone who Shafi'i saying 2 or 3, and I was confused. Was that everyone, or was that just what Shafi'i say and Maliki say odd number? Yeah,
I didn't know that the Shafi'i said 2 or 3. I did a couple Shafi'i Fiqh books also, Umdat al-Sadiq, and also Nihayat al-Taqrib. And from my recollection, I don't have my books in front of me from those particular books. I think it was 3 also. If it was 2, Allahu Alam, I don't remember that. But from my recollection, I thought it was at least an odd number also.
Okay, it was just a student who said that, so it wasn't like it was a teacher, so they could have been wrong. Well, my other question is, in sujood, is it the same with women that it is with men, where you keep your arms out some, or we're supposed to have ours in, basically touching the side?
Yeah, the woman should have theirs in again, but it's still not like the elbows on the ground or anything, but the woman should be in it, and I should have mentioned that too. In regards to everything, for example, in the prayer, like the parts where like the men is recommended for the man to be like a little out more, the women should be in more. So, like in regards to, for example, like the arms and the legs and things like that, the woman, hers should be like constricted more, but not to the point I said where it's like touching the ground or anything like that. But out of just for modesty reasons.
Right. Okay, shukran. Assalamualaikum.
Thanks.
Okay, alhamdulillah. We also have a question, hand raised on line 2, 815227. You have a question?
Well, that's me.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Yeah, I'm listening on my computer and on my phone as well. Well, I'm talking on the phone, but it's like a 2 or 3 minute, 2 or 15-second time lapse in between. So, yeah, I didn't know if I was on or not. But I just wanted to say assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And I get to hear you, speak quite a lot more often than a lot of brothers do. But I just want to, say your hand. You're doing a beautiful job, and I appreciate, and I'm sure that all the other ummah out there listening appreciate exactly what you're doing. So, assalamu alaikum. I just want to send my salam.
Okay, mashallah, jazakallah. Abdul Halim, mashallah.
MashaAllah. If anyone else has any questions about anything that's been covered thus far, just push number 1, and we can, inshallah, clear up whatever you may have. Okay, well, at this time looks... Oh, yeah, I had a question, actually. With regards to where Imam Malik, radiallahu anhu, he had said that it's okay to recite the Basmala, but not in the Fard. I was curious, where was that? Was that in Muwatta or?
No. Actually, that was in Madonna. And actually,
okay.
Actually, it was a call of not so much. I'm sorry, I misspoke. Yeah, that was in Madonna, and actually, Qadi Ibn Arabi al-Andalus, he actually gave in one of the later compendiums on the book, he elucidated more on that in regards to, for example, the Dawud, like when you say Al-Dubadai, things like that. Malik, he didn't object to it in the Nawafil, just not in the Fard Salat. So
okay.
With the Asta'inu, and with the Basmala itself, the problem, and even with folding, playing with the hands, the right over the left, he doesn't object to it in the Nawafil Salat. It's just in the Fard Salat is what he objects to.
No, okay.
Because all of the, all of the evidences we previously discussed. So the objection is really in regards to the Fard Salat.
But
if one is doing like the Nawafil, and the reason why he doesn't object to other things, such as folding the hands and the Basmala, things like that, in regards to the Nawafil, because in Nawafil Salah, obviously, you're going to be praying for a longer period of time.
No,
right. So, so you have more liberty, so to speak. But he's very particular about the fault, and really relying upon, I said, the specific verses from the Quran and the Amal of Ahl al-Medina. He's very, very strict on that in regards to the Fard Salat.
MashaAllah.
The reason was from the time of the Messenger to his time, Salah had only been stopped in the Masjid Nabi for 2 days when Medina was being attacked by the Umayyads. He says, so, their Sunnah, you already know their Sunnah has precedence. It's not like they were, praying in front of a bunch of ignorant people who didn't see the Prophet, so don't pray.
No. MashaAllah. We have any more questions?
In the Madonna, and also I believe in Sheikh Ahmed Mubarak, I think it's the first volume in his Sharh al-Kabir.
Okay.
Which is the most. Sharh al-Kabir goes into all the details in regards to all these things, because that's the text which is mainly used for Fatawa. It's in the first volume. I don't got the page number.
Okay.
But I can get it to you,
Inshallah. All right. Once again, if you have any questions, just push 1. We'll go to you. If you're on the computer and you like to chime in and ask a question, the number is 914-338-084. That's 914-338-084. I don't see any hands raised, so did you want to continue or?
Well, we can. Let me see what time it is. Yeah, we're going for an hour. I think, with your permission, we should stop here, because we can do is next Sunday we can pick up at the Qunut.
At the Qunut, mashallah.
No, we can pick up at the Qunut for next Sunday, because I just did it up until that part. And we can finish out that part of the prayer and go to the next part. I think we've been going for like an hour.
No. Okay. Inshallah, that's fine. Fine.
And I gotta finish a midterm anyway.
Inshallah. Alright, so Jazakallah khair. Alhamdulillah, this is definitely a good show, or a good class actually. So that's no problem. So we get guys close out with dua. Doesn't look like we have any hands raised, so that should do it. It was good attendance, so alhamdulillah.
You can close with dua, inshallah.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولا عصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر سبحانك وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.